So far we've designated the font family and the font face for this text. The next thing we want to do is control the size of the text. Over here in this field, I can just click the field label and type in a specific size. For example, if I just want this to be 12 point, I can click 12 and hit return, and that will change. If I'd rather choose from a list of predetermined sizes, I can just click the pull down button right here and choose a size, maybe bump this up to 18 point. And if I want to make more minute changes, I can insert my cursor inside the size field and start using my arrow key. In this case, I'm just changing 1 unit at a time, all the way down to, in this case, 5 points. It's a little small. Let's bump that back up to 10. And remember that your nudge size there is determined by your application preferences. So I'm moving by 1 point at a time. If you want to change that, you can alter that in your app prefs. So I'm going to press return or enter on Windows and just invoke that 10-point change. Make sure that that's set. And there are a couple of other keyboard shortcuts that I use all the time to change the size of my fonts. Specifically, that is Shift Command on the Mac or Shift Control on Windows, and then the greater than sign on your keyboard. And that will increase the size of your font. Shift Command less than, or in Windows Shift Control less than, will decrease the size of your font. This way, if you're typing and working on text, you don't even need to remove your hands from your keyboard. One other variation there, hold Shift Option Command, that would be Shift Alt Control on Windows, I know it's a mouthful, and then use the greater than and less than keys, and that will jump by a value of 10. So instead of tiny little changes, you can make a big change all at once. So for example, if you're creating a headline for a magazine story or a newspaper article, it's a really easy way to set a tiny little bit of type, hit that one keyboard shortcut to bump it up to a large size, and then you can fine-tune it from there. Now I've really been monkeying around with this type, so let's set this back to an even 10 points. And look at the value right below here. This is the leading value. Now leading is the amount of space between one baseline and the next baseline. That is where all of the main letters sit on the line. So right now you see my type is set at 10 point and my leading is set at 12 point, but it's in parentheses. What does the parentheses indicate? That shows us that we're using our auto value. So to control the auto value for your type, come way over here on the very right hand side of the control panel and click the panel flyout menu. Within this menu, choose the justification option. Within justification, you get a dialog box that mostly has to do with left to right justification, including word spacing, letter spacing, and glyph scaling. But the option that we want to take a look at is auto leading. So right now, auto leading is set to 120%. And the reason you need leading is, for example, if you have a lowercase g or a q or a j or a p, you have those descenders, those parts of the letter form that drop below the baseline. And if you had leading set to 100%, those descenders would bump up against some of the other characters. So we make sure the auto leading value here by default it's 120%. I think that's normally a good setting. You could customize this however you'd like. Let's go ahead and turn on preview and play with that for just a minute. Let's set that to maybe 150% and you can see the change there. I'm going to leave it at 120%, so I'll just click cancel, but I want you to know how you can change that value. Now right now that value is set to auto, but we can customize that. So for example, I'll select just a little bit of text in this first paragraph and I can change the leading value by hand. Maybe I want that to be 18 points. I'll just enter that value and press return. Now I have to admit this is a bit of a silly example. I normally wouldn't change leading just for one line in the middle of a paragraph. As we say frequently at Adobe, just because you can doesn't mean you should, but now you know how. So I'll press Command-Z or Control-Z on Windows to undo that last step. And next up, we'll explore some more character formatting options.